Intense thunderstorms are set to lash the nation's southeast corner tonight and into tomorrow, and extreme heat across Western Australia expected to develop. So we've got thunderstorms, heat, and even a possible tropical cyclone across Western Australia and across southeastern Australia as well, as I mentioned, those storms. All of that plus more in the next 15 minutes, so stick around to the end of the video because there is a lot to cover for this forecast update on January 6, 2024, brought to you by Force 13 Australia. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing, it really does help us out. And if you'd like to give us a weather report for your location, please do consider leaving that in the comment section down below. But taking a look at the national picture right now, you can see heat developing across Australia's west. It's not going to be especially hot, but still we could be seeing daytime maximum up to 44 degrees Celsius for some locations. And then the main story is storms and severe storms across Australia's red centre and into Australia's southeast. Now Sydney should miss the majority of those storms, which is good for the pink test. Australia 1 for none right now, not a very good start. But you can see showers as well for Tasmania and also for the southern parts of New Zealand. But the main story right now is severe storms across South Australia, New South Wales and also Victoria. And these storms could get very nasty indeed. We're going to break those down in a great detail in the forecast model section of this video, so stay around until that. Now the tropical cyclone chances, I've marked a 10% chance of development, a very low chance of development off the Kimberley region of Western Australia. You can see on the forecast models later on, there's a small chance of something developing there. Some forecast models spin up a brief tropical low, and it is cyclone season, so I felt like why not marking it. There's going to be a lot of activity across a lot of the southwest Indian Ocean across the next 2 weeks, so we'll be looking at that as well. But the main story is, of course, those thunderstorms, which we're looking at right now. The reds and the blacks, which you can see developing Sunday night and into Monday morning, are very, very widespread and strong across Victoria and New South Wales. And you can see they even extend into Sydney on about Tuesday before it's that sort of pulse thunderstorm takeover, which will deliver the large rainfall totals to isolated locations across Queensland and the Northern Territory. And you can also see Western Australia gets a bit of action Thursday and into Friday and down in towards the southwestern corner, which is great news because we are in full-blown drought conditions there. And you can see a concentrated area of rainfall in Western Australia's tropical north. That's the tropical low that I'm talking about. It hangs around for about 3 or 4 days and it really tries to get itself together, but I don't think conditions will be conducive enough for something to spin up. Now, taking a look at the temperature forecast run, you can see warm conditions across Australia's north as usual, mild conditions across the south, and those storms should keep things humid but rather cool across Victoria and New South Wales until about Wednesday, when things start to heat up again and we start to see those 40-degree days creep back into New South Wales and Queensland, and it gets really hot across Australia's centre and the south as well as we get into Friday and next weekend, with temperatures expected to soar to 46 degrees Celsius in Kalgoorlie next Saturday. So very hot indeed. The only place remaining cold is Tasmania, where we could still be seeing sub-zero nights into next week, which is still around, it's sort of a thing for January, but it isn't overly common, so cooler than average down there. Eastern, we have rainfall run for Eastern Australia. We're really zooming in now to take a look at those storms, and you can see that low pressure system setting itself up south of Moomba around Roxby Downs, freezing it at 3 p.m. tomorrow night when the storms really do get quite nasty. You can see very strong thunderstorm and maybe even supercell activity expected across northern Victoria and into southern New South Wales around towns like around those towns there. So very strong thunderstorms expected through there, and they could be delivering the threat of damaging, locally destructive winds, heavy and locally intense rainfall, and even large hailstones, and in some places we could be seeing giant hailstones. And there's also the isolated threat of tornadoes, and thankfully by around Wednesday they'll start to clean themselves up, and we'll see that sort of just rain, showery, maybe a couple of thunderstorms here and there pattern take over for parts of Queensland. But it's definitely a tropical pattern, that's for sure, and that'll be driven by a tropical low that's meant to set itself up offshore in the South Pacific. So taking a look at the satellite imagery, you can already see some thunderstorms starting to fire up over Adelaide at this time, and these storms are only going to get stronger throughout today. We're going to be watching that very closely because these storms are going to be quite strong. They could be delivering, as I said before, very damaging weather conditions driven by that low pressure system that's expected to move through South Australia. But let's take a look at the in-depth forecast on the forecast models. All right, so we're starting off now taking a look at the current picture of Australia. Now, there's a lot of thunderstorm activity everywhere. You can see those flashes indicate lightning strikes. There's a lot of lightning activity nationwide, especially in the tropical north and also across the New South Wales and South Australia border. It looks like Victoria has dodged the worst of it right now, which is good. It's what we expected to happen today. However, it will be a different story tomorrow when we're expecting these strong storms to form around Mildura and that sort of area, north of at least Bendigo and Ballarat, that sort of area. But we will be seeing strong thunderstorms move through Victoria and New South Wales into this evening and beyond. So taking a look at the rain radar, there are some very heavy thunderstorms around. Very, very strong thunderstorms across South Australia and also into parts of New South Wales. Now, what I'm seeing right now is just looking at this lightning activity, even though I don't have radar imagery, we're looking out for a pretty decent line of storms. I'm not seeing supercell thunderstorms right now, which means the threat of tornadoes remains very low, and the threat of giant hailstones also remains relatively low. But we're still looking out for those small hailstones, very heavy rainfall under the right thunder cell, and also some damaging winds to complement it. So still very strong storms around, and this is very much in line with what we expected on the forecast models. These storms are just starting to enter Victoria right now as per the ECMWF model. We're not expecting southern Victoria to get significantly hit tonight, but it will be tomorrow morning when we're going to be seeing Victoria get these severe thunderstorms, and they'll blow through about Melbourne at around 2 to 3 p.m. Local time. They could be quite strong indeed. But it's Mildura, Broken Hill, these are our hotspot towns today and also into tomorrow when we're looking out for. I'm just rolling this through right now. You can keep track of the time at the bottom part of your screen, but I'm just seeing very, very strong thunderstorms moving through Mildura. This isn't a nightmare scenario in terms of thunderstorm activity, but it's a scenario that worries me in the sense of these storm cells are packing very heavy rainfall, very damaging winds associated with that, and also some large hailstones that we can expect. So tonight and into tomorrow, make sure you are very vigilant for thunderstorms, keeping an eye on the skies and also keeping an eye on the Bureau of Meteorology forecast pages, because these storms are strong. They are not messing around and they want to bully you. These are some very strong thunderstorms, that's for sure. And like I said as well, these thunderstorms are hit and miss. So there will be locations that get absolutely slammed by these storms, and then there'll be locations that don't get slammed by these storms and miss out by 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers or a very small margin, because especially in their formative stages earlier in the afternoon and across the South Australia border, these storms will be very isolated, and it's only until they get into central New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria down towards Melbourne and closer to the coastline, then they become a lot more widespread and interconnected, and then we're seeing squall lines develop. But please do, in the comment section down below, keep us posted on what thunderstorm activity your location experiences. I am dying to hear a storm report from a lot of people in the comment section down below, so make sure you do that if you do get impacted by these thunderstorms. But yeah, it is a very serious situation developing, that's for sure, this afternoon. I'm just going to briefly take a look at the satellite imagery before I give a full forecast into tomorrow, a very specific one, and also a forecast into the next 10 days. And I want to just briefly touch up north. These are some very strong and widespread thunderstorm activity. On the visible, these are some very pretty thunderstorms. It looks like a bubble bath, actually. A very, very pretty looking convective bubble bath. Thankfully up north, they're pulse thunderstorms, so they're non-life threatening. But the storms down here packing that heavy rainfall and damaging and locally destructive winds and even large hailstones in places. These storms are life-threatening thunderstorms. If you are out in the open in a situation like this, not only do you have the slim chances of being struck by lightning, but you've got that combined with the chances of being injured by hailstones or by trees falling or debris flying around, because these are strong thunderstorms. So stay indoors while these storms pass through. Keep an eye on the sky, as I just said. A green tinge means that large hailstones are imminent for your location. So a green tinge means you're probably in the firing line of a pretty significant thunderstorm. So yeah, just make sure that you're staying safe. I can't stress that enough. It's really important to stay safe in a situation like this with very strong thunderstorms moving through the area. And the situation will only get worse as we get into the later hours of tonight and into tomorrow. Now, rainfall accumulation is also something I want to take a look at. Over the next 5 days, there will be locations that pick up to 100 millimetres. Just outside of Albury, there's going to be a spot or two that pick up to 150 millimetres. The Bureau of Meteorology itself expecting substantially more rainfall, with locations widespread areas expecting well over 120 millimetres, and some places that have the chance to get up to 200 millimetres. There will be 6 hourly rainfall totals of sort of in excess of 100 millimetres in this situation. So under the right area, there will be places that pick up a whopping amount of rainfall, and that will drive flash flooding and even sustained river flooding in some locations, especially across the Murray-Darling Basin. There are going to be places that flood up towards the minor or the moderate flood levels. So if you live in a flood-prone area, make sure you're staying up to date with all the appropriate flood warnings and watches, because it is very important that you stay up to date with those, because you don't want to get flooded in, that's for sure. And I'm not going to neglect Queensland or South Australia either, because there are locations, very dry locations typically, that pick up a very significant amount of rainfall. In the desert locations, which have an average annual rainfall of maybe 150 millimetres, there's going to be at least 50 to 100 millimetres falling in some places. And keep in mind, these places can go years without rainfall, so any amount of rainfall will definitely cause some flooding in locations. But when you get into the deep desert locations, the rainfall will be very hit and miss. There will be locations that pick up to 100 millimetres, and then you can go 5 kilometres down the road and they get nothing. So when you're looking at these isolated pulse thunderstorms and supercell thunderstorms in the early afternoon, when these storms really first start to fire across the South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria borders, then you're expecting locations to really get this hit and miss rainfall. But as you get closer to the Great Dividing Range, and especially down towards the Capital Territory, Wagga Wagga, Albury, that sort of area, then the rainfall is going to be a lot more widespread and predictable. So down here, I can say with certainty that you're going to pick up at least 50 millimetres from this event. But as you get closer to Broken Hill, Moomba, and up towards Birdsville, then there's going to be a lot more hit and miss rainfall. In the metro areas, Sydney expecting 25 millimetres, Melbourne expecting 50, and once again, because it's from thunderstorms, it will be very quick rainfall. Tasmania sort of misses out on the worst of it, but there will be places again that get slammed with these thunderstorms. There will be a storm or two that tracks over diagonally across the nation, as you'd expect for a storm lineup like this. And once again, under the right storm, you could be seeing a significant and substantial amount of rainfall. Let's dive up and take a look at the tropics, because there's rainfall expected up there as well, as you'd expect for this time of the year. Between days 5 and 10 from this tropical low, this monsoon trough that's expected to set itself up in the Timor Sea, there's going to be a lot of very significant rainfall. But it does look like it remains offshore. But if this rainfall is to get onshore, then you're looking at places picking up to 300 millimetres. Very heavy rainfall, but it is seasonal once again, so we're not expecting anything catastrophic to evolve from it. And between days 5 and 10 is when we're expecting Western Australia to get its first real rainfall of summer, especially the goldfields and the southwest regions. Then we're expecting some substantial rainfall totals. In fact, it looks like Perth might get its first decent fall in a very, very long time, which is great news down there, because we are very, very thirsty for rainfall. Now, I have also been watching this low pressure system in the South Pacific. Now, this low pressure system here tracks off New Caledonia over Norfolk Island and over towards Lord Howe Island. It very much weakens itself up Saturday and into Sunday. However, if this was to move further north and we get a high pressure system develop in the Tasman Sea, that sort of area, then what we're going to see, now this is unlikely and it is just a forecast, so don't take it at face value, but what we will see is a lot of rainfall drive itself ashore north of Coffs Harbour and south of Rockhampton. So there is a chance that early next week we do see a substantial amount of rainfall on the Queensland, New South Wales coast, in sort of a rain bomb situation where up to 300 millimetres could fall from just an onshore flow dumping a lot of rainfall across a 48-hour period. So keep that in the back of your head, and we'll be watching the forecast very closely, because there's a lot of tropical moisture in the South Pacific and the Coral Sea, which you can see from multiple low pressure systems spinning themselves up. And I will also briefly just point out this low pressure system here, which is off Colombo and the Kimberley coastline of Western Australia. A lot of rainfall situated around it, but if we take a look at wind speed, it's not really even a closed tropical low at this point. It's just a very weak monsoon low with winds of around 20 knots around the northern side, so it's very weak indeed, and it's not a tropical cyclone threat at this time, but there is a chance that it spins itself up into a tropical cyclone, but it really doesn't look likely looking at the forecast models right now. However, in saying that, sea surface temperatures and conditions overall for a tropical cyclone are looking very favourable up across northern Western Australia. So if we do get a cyclone, it will be a very strong one if it gets a good environment to situate itself in. Sea surface temperatures, I've never seen them this hot this early on in the year, and they're only going to get hotter as well as we get deeper into the summer. 32 degrees Celsius for some locations. So if a cyclone got itself up here and in a favourable environment, there's nothing stopping it from getting to Category 5 status, that's for sure. And that's Category 5 status on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So you're looking at a cyclone with winds comparable to Marcus or Yasi. Very, very strong systems indeed. So we really hope that they don't curve around and impact the Pilbara or the Gascoyne region like we sometimes and occasionally do see them through Karratha, Carnarvon, that sort of area. But yeah, headlining that, very, very favourable conditions up here, driven by El Nino and the negative Indian Ocean dipole. So yeah, if a cyclone is to form, it's going to have an absolute birthday party up here with the conditions that it has. The ECMWF is sort of the only one that gives this storm a fighting chance, which is good news because we don't really want to see more cyclones unless they stay well away from Australia. But what I can tell you is over here around Madagascar, now stick with me here because this is important for Australia, is cyclone activity around here. Now how cyclone activity and tropical activity works is there's a phase called the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation. Now that moves counterclockwise around the world. So the MJO drives cyclone activity and tropical activity moving across the globe in a counterclockwise direction. Now, I'm seeing tropical cyclone activity next week around Madagascar, which means if I was to extrapolate that as the MJO moves across to be situated across Australia, by the end of next week, Friday, sort of the 20th and the 21st of January, then we're looking out for a lot of tropical moisture to be across Australia and the Northern Territory, and that's when we're going to be looking out for the chance of tropical cyclones. Did that make sense? Give me a bit of feedback in the comment section down below, and if you've got any questions, please do leave them there as well. But anyways, that's basically it for the forecast. I'm not going to take a look at temperatures because it's very, very typical for this time of the year. The only thing to note is hot over Western Australia by the end of next week and next weekend. But it's very typical for this time of the year to get hot conditions over there. Nothing out of the ordinary. If I've missed anything, please do leave it in the comment section down below. And also I'd like to say over 90% of you guys aren't subscribed, and subscribing is a great way to monetarily support the channel that is completely free for you. So if you could please consider subscribing, that would be fantastic. I'm loving bringing the forecast to you, and it's been great delivering the weather forecast to you, but we're really trying to hit 10,000 subscribers here, so your support would be greatly appreciated, that's for sure. But thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our content this update. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to get more updates covering all things weather and geophysics impacting Australia and the Oceania region. Subscribe to our other channels for more content from across the network, and be sure to check out our website where you can find free access to floater and radar imagery and articles on everything weather and much more. If you wish to support us directly, you can purchase some of our merchandise. We have a wide variety of clothing and homeware, or you can become an Ultimate Fan, which is the best way to directly support us, granting you some sweet perks and offers, including features in our custom storm animations, live streams, and much more.